write this essay for two reasons. For three reasons, really, because of a major trend that's going on in this country. The process of regentrification, and we're going to define that briefly in a minute. And we have to give some African definitions of this because the concept of gentrification we have to put in African terms. This process is going all over the country, where essentially Europeans are coming in and taking over neighborhoods where black folks live and moving black folks out. This is going on everywhere. Not only in this country, but the second reason is that DC is my home, and I've been home a few times in the last few years, and I don't recognize my neighborhood. I don't recognize a lot of the city because of what they have done to the city and moved us out. And of course, even though the force comes from them, and we know the means that they will use politically, economically, etc., it also has to do with how we think. Okay, because I think I said last week that if you a master requires a slave, and somebody has to submit to that. But also here in Atlanta, right here in this house is at in the epicenter, in the center of the regentrification of the Atlanta metro area, because of the housing stock, the 11-foot ceilings, the old style houses, the good quote-unquote stock. So we're seeing, you can see here the gradual movement, because many of the black folks who live in this area are not people who you can just move out because they're renting, or move out because they don't own the property, or move out because they're old and they're ready to take whatever, to leave. That's most of the folks who live here are, in fact, a lot of them are pretty young in their 30s, 20s and 30s. So what you're seeing here, you can see it better because of the gradualness that is occurring. So right down the street here, we have the McDonald's, and they completely and totally took it down and rebuilt it from scratch. Folks who don't understand, which is most of the folks right here, they're so excited because McDonald's has rebuilt a McDonald's for them. It's the same people here. You don't raise a McDonald's, and I mean R-A-Z-E a McDonald's, tear it all the way complete to the ground, and then rebuild another one with the same people there, and there's nothing to indicate that you're going to receive a serious profit from that. They did right after that was done, they immediately did the Wendy's, and then they did some other store, Dunkin' Donuts. They redid all of this. And we think, for folks who have been here at least 7 or 8 years, they will remember when Abernathy was ripped up right across the whole street on West End Mall, all the way down to where the CVS is. They dug up the street and they placed the pipes in that they're going to use later. So a lot of the things that they are doing now and have already done, they're not designed for immediate use. Okay, they're designed because the plan is long range. You got 15, 20, 30, 40 years worth of planning into this. So a lot of things we see, a lot of the buildings that are getting left, a lot of the properties being built, a lot of the condos that are being built, they're being built now because they need to be in place where we're living there, so that when it's time for them to move in, we're moved out, and then they renovate them and they start living there. The warehouses over here, this is something that they have their eye on, because they have this all mapped out. The changing of the streets so that you can have a bike lane that nobody uses, except when they're touring. Okay? You change streets from 3 lanes and 4 lanes to 2 lanes. So you got a bike trail on the side that nobody uses. Nobody uses. And here, in this area where you may need a bike trail because people ride bikes, you don't have a bike lane. Okay, so the whole area, and we're of course going to get into that in a minute, but there are 2 main reasons which I want you to think about in terms of why this process is occurring. And okay, really go to resource depletion. I'll make this 3. Overextended domination. technically they don't really want to move back. They study the psychology. They know what happens when you put a bunch of rats or mice in a contained area and they continue to breed and you have overpopulation and some rats come to dominate and start killing and rats start to... There was a very interesting study. Well, it wasn't a... Yes, it was a study. There was a island somewhere in the Greenland area, those islands, and it had it was a plateau and had straight down cliffs, so you couldn't climb down it, you couldn't climb up it. And there was a herd of elk or something that they wanted to trim down. So they took some of them and put them on this island because there was plenty of grass, plenty of food, plenty of shelter for them to have. They gave them, if you will, a new home. A few years later, a number of fishermen who worked in that area, they discovered carcasses and bones from elk who apparently had jumped off of the cliff. So they went back, the scientists went back, and they discovered that there was a massive overpopulation of these elk because of the plenty, and they weren't jumping off, they were being pushed off. Okay? They were pushing to make room. It's like animals adjust to the environment that they're in. So if you get a guppy and you put them in a goldfish bowl, then the guppy's going to stay small. But if you put that guppy into a 20-gallon aquarium, when the babies come, they're going to be larger than the guppies in that goldfish bowl, because animals adjust not only in terms of physical size, but in terms of how they act in that area. They knew that when they slammed us into these high-rise projects. They knew it was going to happen as a result of that, because they know what happens in very densely populated areas with people. They know that these people turn on each other. They know that these people begin to not care whatsoever about the environment, so they will loiter, they will urinate, they will do whatever because it's not theirs. They don't see it as theirs. So they know what happens to people when you compress them in a particular area. Okay. Well, I was talking about that, I have no idea, but resource depletion is this is the one that you hear about on the fringes of conscious discussions. Europeans go to war to gain resources. There's never been a war that they've been involved in that didn't come in terms of taking resources and didn't come as a result of an economic depression. Now, it may not be a Great Depression, it may just be a quote-unquote long-standing recession, but all the wars, civil and world wars that they've been involved in have been the result of. And when you look before, whether you're looking about the Civil War in France or civil wars in France, you look about the Civil War here, if you look at the world wars, you see immediately preceding that, there's a major economic depression. They come out of war through depression. Excuse me, they come out of depression through war. And you say, well, how? And people talk all the time, well, war is extremely profitable, and they know that. They understand that clearly. You just look at one teeny tiny aspect, or two teeny tiny aspects. Number one, the winner gets to rebuild whatever was destroyed at a major profit. But also, what's involved in a war? The industries that are created, the unemployed people who find employment in the process of building war, in the process of creating war, is enormous. So you have to have companies and people who make the boots, who make the shoestrings, who make the socks, the uniforms, who make the belts, the canteens, who make the hats, who make the boats, who make the half-tracks, who make the guns, who make the bullets. Because in the rockets, you don't go and when you drop the rocket, you go and you pick up the parts and take it back to the factory and reassemble it. No, you're making more and more and more rockets. Plane gets shot down, you don't go pick up the pieces and put it back together. You make another plane. And it's an industry where you're constantly trying to build better, stronger, more destructive artillery. So war is extremely profitable if you just want to look at the clothes. If you just want to look at the vehicles that ride around on the bases and in the forts, not the ones that are actually engaged in combat, that's a whole different area. How much money was made on mosquito spray in Vietnam? Okay. How much is made in cigarettes in a war? Just belts, bullets, stamps, envelopes, letters. I mean, how much is made? War is extremely profitable. Extremely profitable. And when you looked at Vietnam, you saw B.F. Goodrich tires everywhere. You saw Coca-Cola everywhere. And when they first did I guess it was the Desert Storm thing, the yellow ribbon companies ran out of yellow ribbon to sell to people. The number of flags that people will buy now because of this. So war and gearing up for war I forget what that number was. The United States has been in existence 200 some odd years, and it's been at war something like all but 6 or 7 of those years, somewhere. Because war is extremely profitable. Body bags, they're not cheap. Okay? All of these things cost money, and they understand that. That creates business, big business. Okay? So, I know I'm stuck on this for a second, but I argue, even though I may be 100% wrong, I argue that's why the first Bush was not reelected. Because he didn't turn the Middle East mess that he started into a major fiasco. He didn't turn it into a war. He allowed it to die out. And at that point in time, the Depression called for a war. His son went ahead and did some stuff that needed to be done in order to ensure that violence was ongoing. But the elder Bush, he apparently wasn't wise enough to initiate or to continue or make larger what was going on. And the wars are going on in places where, well, I say another point. The Negro Army talked about how the European military is slow because it's machine heavy. It plods along. It can't do like guerrillas hit run, but it plods along like a force because it's real heavy, like a person who ate 20 times what they're supposed to eat. They're barely moving. This military is driven, and I ask folks to think, what does it take on a daily basis in terms of just fuel to run this military machine globally? You got bases for everywhere. Everywhere. You just go on a base, just the vehicles that are on the base, to the gas that it takes to run this military. The helicopters, the planes, the fighters, the tactical, all the rest of this stuff requires fuel. All these things require fuel. So what kind of fuel do you have to do that? And they know that if they run out of fuel, they can't dominate. They don't have a military that operates off of people's sense of loyalty. Okay, I send 50 guys over to Indonesia somewhere, and I know that they're going to continue to fight for us for the next 30 years, even though they're not getting paid. They don't have that kind of mentality. So you have a military that, if it is not fueled with oil, because they're not solar, nowhere near being solar. Okay? They're nowhere near being nuclear in terms of the movement of equipment. If they cannot fuel this army, this Air Force, this Navy, this Marine, then they can't dominate. They can't dominate. They can't do what they do. So that's a major part of what they're fighting for. The biggest expenditure is military. Technology, grants, all the rest of it is military. It's military. At no point in time have they not been engaged or not been preparing for war. At no point in time in their history. Okay? But that has to be fuel. Something has to drive that. Something has to drive that, especially when you got to the point where this is global. They are extremely overextended. So like I said, for a queen on the chessboard, and she's trying to attack that piece and protect this piece and protect this piece and protect this piece and protect this piece. All you have to do is distract her over here by attacking this piece, and then you can take those 3 pieces out. It's sort of like an overextended parent. I tell students all the time when they want to complain about what their parent will let them go here, or they can't do that, or they can't stay up to such and such, or they can't go to this mall by themselves, or they can't go to Six Flags without some kind of escort or what have you. And I said that's like the overextended parent who recognizes that if I don't hold on to this in this reality, I can lose this because everybody's trying to get to this child. Everybody's trying to take this child from me. Okay? So that overextended is really, really bad. And they have bases here. You got bases in Europe. You got bases force in Africa. You've got them in the islands. You've got all of these people in all of these places, and all these people have to be fed, and all these machines have to run. I guess a very good evidence of economic, a piece of the evidence of economic. Prince George's County, Maryland, has the richest collection of Africans in this country. Prince George's County, Maryland. It's got the richest group of Africans in this country. And I have family who lives there.
They call it PG County.
PG County. Fiji County. And I went home one time to visit, you know, my family, and my, I don't want to say in-laws' names or what have you, but I'm talking, and they're talking about how much money black folks got and how strong, blah, blah, blah. And so they're saying, do you all own a gas station here? Well, no, but well, do you all own, you know, like a mall or something? Because there are a number of malls in PG, and this is the wealthiest blacks. Do you all own? Well, no. I'm saying, you got no power. All you are salaried employees. You have income. You have income. If you have wealth, then you have some resources. So if the Europeans decided to cut off your gas supply, cut off your clothes supply, oh, your shoe supply, oh no. Your shoe supply, your any of that supply, then you're through. Because you don't make anything, you have no manufacturing, you have no store, you have no places of business really, unless it's a part of what they allow you into. And this is the richest county for black folks in this country. And not one single mall is owned. Not one single gas station is owned. Even here in Atlanta, I mean, I look at the Amoco station down here, used to be owned by Mets, a husband and wife. And they sold it, I guess, about 5 or 6 years ago, because he was getting old. She was getting old too, retired. But that, when we first moved in here, that was one of the things that attracted us to this neighborhood. Black-owned gas station, black banks, black folks. I look outside my front door, I look to the left, I look to the right, I look forward, I see us. And we're owning stuff. And now you look around and you don't see that anymore. Even capital is being sold. It's like all of this is changing and it's not accidental. Anyway, I guess the one point I really want to make sure that I made tonight, and we've pretty much talked about it, but we're going to talk about it some more. Because we need to understand we're dealing with a people who are strictly minded. So I hope everybody's listening to me. I tell the students all the time, they'll sit there looking when they're supposed to be doing something. I say, why are you looking at me? Do I really look that good? I mean, you know, wow. Bring my ego down a little bit here. We talked about the military mindedness of Europeans. This move is a defensive move. And that will be the third thing that was on that list. This is a defensive move. This is military mindedness. This is a defensive move, even though it is also offensive. And offensive in both definitions. It's an insult and it is a first attack tactic, strategy. Europeans know that we're waking up. Most of us still asleep, but some of us are waking up. We should be gone. Somebody said that the miracle of slavery, or the fascinating thing about slavery, is not that we survived it, but that we're still alive. That's the fascinating thing. That's where the person was trying to speak to our strength, but that's the fascinating term about our resilience. That's the fascinating thing about it, that we survived, because we should not have survived. We were not meant to survive. It was the average age of an enslaved African on the island of Haiti was 7 years from the point of arrival. 7 years. So you get worked to death. We were not supposed to survive. That was not our purpose being brought here to survive. My father used to talk about, and I'm getting ready to say, we had to understand the intent. My father said that he had a lot of clarity. He said when a long time ago, horses were men's primary form of transportation. Because in fact, horses were so important that if you stole a man's horse, you get killed. You got hung or you got shot. You were killed for stealing this horse. But then you had the steam engine and the gas combustion engine come along, and as they developed, they became better in terms of transporting things and speed than the horses. So the horses lost their importance. They lost their priority. And horses came to be the primary, and this was still the case when I was a child, came to be the primary ingredient in dog food. When I was a child, that was still the case. Horses came to be the primary ingredient in dog food because they weren't serving. They were not functionally serving. They were not a utilitarian thing for Europeans anymore. So they went the way of whatever other resource, wherever else they could be used. He said the same thing applies to the black man. He said when they were building this country, he said, excuse me, when we were building this country, we were of great importance to them. And that wasn't what saved our lives or kept us from being lynched or beat or what have you, because there was this constant supply, either from the continent or through the slave breeding primarily in North Carolina and South Carolina. But there was this constant supply, so it was a little different with horses and us. Plus it was easier to produce one of us than it was to produce a horse. Because at that time, we were important to Europeans. We weren't held in high esteem, but we were important to Europeans. Once that was done, he said, once the country was built, then our usefulness was gone. And he said the same thing that happened to horses is what's happening to us now. So we're being used in the cans we call prisons. We're being used in the cans we call cemeteries to feed whatever, to feed their appetites. So when you're no longer useful to them in that way, then you're disposed of, or you're put on the track of genocidal destruction. So, how did I get to that? Military mindedness, defense, offensive. They realize that we're waking up. We got on that because some of us are waking up. And those who are waking up now, when I talk to the young folks who are walking this direction, I tell them that they are stronger than the ones in my generation, even though I wasn't involved with that, or the ones before, because there is more against them walking in this direction now. The peers, family, everybody's against. Why are you doing that? Versus when I was coming up, you had some folks, Black Power, Malcolm, all the rest of this, so there was some motivation for you to do that. But now, everything is against that. So that means that the people who are walking this direction, that doesn't mean they're better people. That just means that it requires a greater deal of courage and determination to walk this way now than before. They know that. They know that the courage is even deeper than that. It just hasn't gotten to that point yet. They know that our courage is even deeper than that. They know that our strength is even deeper than that. So, and this is globally. There's a Black Panther Party in India. The untouchables aren't quite untouchable. They know what's going on. And all over you're seeing this way. You go to England, go to Britain, and you see black folks, they're getting kind of antsy. Something's wrong, and they're not in their place anymore the way they used to be. They're realizing that they are being genocidally destroyed. So wherever we are, wherever we're organized, in Tanzania, South Africa, some of the voices that you hear, quite a few of the voices that you hear are kind of ticked off. And these are young black folks. And I'm not connected to them. I'm hearing, they're reaching out. What resources can you send us? What's going on? Tell us about what's going on over there so we know that we're not alone. That type of thing is going on. They know that. They've got a high level of intelligence gathering. It's not like things are going on and they're oblivious to what's being said. Okay? They know about irritated, they know about SETI, they know about all these people, they know exactly what's being said. They know about the African insurrection music, they know about all of these things. So they know in watching this what they can and cannot stop, what's too large for them to stop. Okay. So they have to find ways to try to undermine it, but that's another discussion again. While in the process, they have to defend themselves because they know what they've done to other people. And they know that people don't, and the turn the other cheek mentality that they have pushed so hard, they know that we are recognizing it for what it is. So they are coming together. It's not just because we love our cities. It's not just because of fuel. They're doing the same thing that they did when they encountered the indigenous people in this land as they walked across this country and killed millions. They're circling their wagons to put in defense. The cities are becoming their new forts. That's what they do when they're in enemy territory. They create a fort. And from that fort, they attack. So you move out those people who you consider to be enemy. You build that infrastructure, you secure it very highly. Police, everybody becomes militarized. The children, the women, anybody notice these trends? Okay. All of this is going on, so you have a military, back like in Sparta, city-states. Little city-states that military defend themselves against whatever threat that comes on, whatever threat they perceive. And only those of us who are the most Negro-ish will be allowed in to stay in those cities of privilege in time. You will be representative. You will be the one whose job it is to represent and say, well, this isn't a racist thing, because see, you're here. But these are cities, you have to imagine these as cities where they come together to protect. It's just like when at the beginning of this, in the 80s and 90s, globally, Europeans realized how dispersed they were, how overextended they were in their own states. So they began to consolidate the United States, Canada, and Europe. Okay, if you have great scientists, if you will, and one of your scientists is in Australia, one of your scientists is in Antarctica, one of your scientists is in Latin America, one of your scientists is in North America, one of your scientists is in Greenland. And they're working independently on their projects, and of course, they're brilliant, so they're doing good work. But imagine what could happen when you bring them all together into one place. So that was part of the process of this consolidation of power. United States, Canada, Europe. Russia's a part of that also, but Russia I consider to be part of Europe anyway. And so you had this consolidation of power, and that began the movement toward this consolidation of the currency, which the United States is still fighting because it can't, it's going to be on the bottom. But this consolidation fits a defensive posture. And these cities fit that. Fit it perfectly when you look historically. When they were attacked, crossing this country, they immediately formed a circle of the wagons. They would immediately build a fort to protect their interests from a place that they could be safe, while they continue to destroy whatever was around them. So these cities, I look at them as evolving fortresses, forts. That's exactly what they are. And you say, well, what about the folks that are in the rural area? Because a lot of them aren't coming into the city. That's not just their home, but that's their territory too. So to them, this is their land. This is my land. This is your land. All the rest of that. This is their space to them. But even when you fortify, through my city. Even when you fortify the city, well, okay, let me do something else here. I know this isn't like the African concentric circles. Rural, suburban, and urban. These will be the forts, the fortresses. The suburban area will primarily be any man's land. We'll end up there, and other people will end up there, and you can control that. And that's where the prisons will be. You know, they say, mark my word. They're already there. Okay, this is where the holding, this is where the control is going to be. Okay, but this is where they're going to live. This is going to be the fortress. This is the wall. Even though some people argue with me, you understand why they have the lights coming onto the highways from the on-ramps, and they create more congestion than before. You need to control what's on the. He and I were driving from Chicago to Mississippi, I think it was. We passed through this town. We took another route because it was construction. We went through this town, and all of the. We stopped to get gas. I guess it wasn't. All of the. In this town, it had like you have at the railroad crossings and the lights. This town, these towns had them at every entryway onto the highway, because there was a factory or something that assembled warheads, and they transported them to the base. And when they transported them, they emptied the highway from the factory to the base. And you couldn't go on the highway, and these things would come down. Wherever you at, you were stuck until the train, if you will, went by. Okay, I see the same thing with here. They're like commonalities, as well as the walls that are going up around the cities. You see that in D.C. around the highways. And they, of course, say that's for noise. And it does reduce the noise level to the houses that are nearby, like that's now a major concern. But it's a way of containing people. So if you are trying to run, if you're trying to get away from that city, and that's the barrier, and you find that on the perimeters, the highways that go circle the cities, the loops, like in Chicago, the circle, you find those there. You don't find them just on 75, 85 someplace, you find them on 20. I mean on 285, which is, part of that. You find that there. Because once you get out there, then there's nowhere for you to get, no way for you to escape. Once you're on, there's no way for you to escape. All of the cameras, you gotta think, as social scientists, you have to project into the future the reason for this. You can't just stop now and say, oh, they're trying to check the speed so they know where there's an accident. No, people have phones, cell phones, that they can call stuff in. You don't need to install millions of dollars worth of camera equipment to do that. So this is going to be the wall around here. And in here, this is going to be their home, but they're also going to be here. The ones that are dumb enough to stay in here, they'll be in here. They'll be I guess you say the emissaries, the goodwill people, what have you. Excuse me? The hippies. No, not the hippies, the hippies. But out here is going to be their safest area, really. Because you got hunters. You have more artillery out here than you have in here. And from out here, I can see you coming. I know this territory. You don't know this territory. You're trying to escape here. See, we think that when all heaven breaks loose, we're going to be able to run to Mexico, like they're going to let us in there. Okay. Or someplace you're just going to run in the rural area and you're going to be able to survive and thrive. That's where they hunt. That's where they fish. This is where they run around now. They know this territory better than they know this territory. You're not going to be able to go in there. You will become a moving target, which would be beautiful for them. They prefer the moving over the still. So it's easy. This is like in these neighborhoods, we don't think about how much little control we have. All you got to do is cut off the water supply. All you got to do is cut off the electrical supply, gas supply. Kroger will be emptied out in like 2 or 3 hours. So where's your food supply? And of course they know that. We're the ones who think that they're going to take care of us. We think that they're going to take care of us. We think they're going to protect us. We think they're going to feed us. We think they're going to house us. But we think they're going to continue to supply for every single solitary need that we have. Because we don't know their story. When I know who you are, then I act differently than when I don't. Okay, now in this process, this is general, you go do some investigating on your own, see what you see. In this, and you should see, just as the last point in terms of the rule, I've been to, my parents lived in rural areas, and you get to see what they do when it's hunting time. When the hunting licenses are handed out, they come in droves. They come in significant numbers to play, to shoot, to kill. So it's like, these rural areas, we think we're going to go to the rural areas and hide and find us a nice little pond and stream and everything's going to be fine. Okay, because they've already claimed this. I seriously doubt if there's any acreage in this country where they don't have, to them, a license to own that. And when all the laws break down, all the rules break down, you brought 5 or 6 acres out there. It's not yours anymore. The folks when Katrina found that out, when the black guys tried to go back to their predominantly white neighborhood, and they got shot by their neighbors. So, what's the good side of this? Part of the good side is, and you have to take this as you want to, it's easier to deal with an enemy that is contained than one that's spread out. So they're doing themselves a disservice by isolating themselves together. It makes it easier for them to be targeted for whatever, business or whatever. Okay? So you got 6 houses with people in it and you want to shoot up everybody else's house. It's easy if everybody's combined into one house. That's your mentality. Of course, I would never think to do anything like that. And also, the other part of it is that if we understand that this is their space, excuse me, that they occupy this space. Okay? This doesn't belong to them. This continent does not belong to them. That they occupy this space militarily, politically, economically, etc. But military is the primary means by which it's occupied. Then we really can't do anything about that. Just like we couldn't do anything about same-sex marriage if we wanted to. And I told the brother, why are you arguing against that? You're wasting your time. Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And you should be expending that energy doing something else in preparation for what's coming after that. And that's the children, the assault on the children. So there's no need to sit here and try to fight regentification. We need to be aware of it because we need to know how they do what they do, and we need to see it. So it's not just happen. It just happened, and we just think everything is fine. We need to know. But if we do correct, I suggested this a number of years ago to a few brothers who were in the real estate part of the conscious community. We need to locate a place where they're not coming right now. And as people's lease comes up, and people's mortgage comes up, or whatever, they move to this area. And we build in that area. And we practice the art of sovereignty, nation building, family building, all that. We practice that there. We serve a community. We make it secure. We do our job in that. We do everything that we need to do there. And if they come, we move again. But we take that with us. And every time, and it continues to grow, get stronger, and build. You don't own this reality. And somebody can call that defeatist if they want to, or fatalist if they want to. No, it's not. It is survival-oriented until we get to a point where we're sovereign. Because this is not our reality. They occupy this space militarily.
So move as a community.
Yes, absolutely. 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 Or, sit here and get picked off. Some people say it's defeat, you want to stand your ground and stand on the. They're coming. The banks are theirs. The resources are theirs. Again, that's not fatalist, that's realist. What did it say? Defeat is not, retreat is not defeat. If your queen is in trouble on the chessboard, you leave her out there just because she's that bad? No, you move her to a safe place where she can attack better from. You don't just move her anywhere. You move her to a place where she can attack better from wherever that square is. But you don't leave her out there to be taken just because your pride won't let you move your queen back. So we have to think strategically. And even though, this is going to be out there, which it needs to, you do this under the radar. Nobody needs to know who you are, what you're doing, or how you're doing it. You get moved anyway. So you move into a place where you can continue the process of building. If this isn't, it's like us fighting over they talk about gangs fighting over blocks, and they don't own the concrete. This is my block. It's not your block. You just happen to be allowed to live there. And we have to approach it like that. This is not, you gotta have a vision of what you're trying to build. And it's not part of this. It's not part of this. It's bigger, it's better, it's stronger. It's African. And that's what we're trying to do. So right now we have to build families. We have to build children who know who they are, who understand that they're warriors, who understand what they're up against, and understand the responsibility of the privilege that they have of knowing what they're being taught. Who understand clearly, and who are intelligent enough, brave enough, conscious enough to do what needs to be done without having to be seen, without having to be needy, without having to get killed for nothing. And let them continue the process.